Hey everybody, StrangeNet here. Today we're going to be talking about PLEX, and that is because PLEX is on the rise and has been for a good period of time, but it's not just a little bump in the road, and we can see by the graph here that it has been on a continued uptrend since April. Now, PLEX is incredibly complex, and there are numerous factors that go into this, and I'm not going to sit here and say I am smart enough to know why it's going up, why it went down, and all the in-betweens, but I'm going to look at a few factors all in all and try and look at what goes into PLEX prices and why and how it's going up, basically. And for full transparency, I did buy 11,000 PLEX for 2.6 million ISK a week or two ago. Yeah, just under a week. So PLEX has been increasing quite dramatically. We've gone up nearly 200,000 ISK in the last, what day are we on? In the last 6 days. So yeah, quite an increase really. And again, that trend does not seem to be slowing down particularly either. We have bounced around about the 2.8 mark and have just pushed through that. Now the 2.8 is quite an important barrier, and again, like real stock markets, you have psychological barriers that you get stuck on or need to push through, and EVE is no different in a lot of respects, because again, the money or the ISK that you generate, obviously some people generate it faster than others, and obviously there are many numerous factors, but the sense of loss in EVE is, you know, akin to real life to an extent. Yes, it's a game and a lot of people are here to have fun, and the rest of it, but you still have to earn the ISK that you have one way or another, or you can buy it, but either way, it's still earned. And therefore, the psychological impacts of losing it or having it increase still work in a game as they do in real life. Now, obviously, real life has different factors because it's not a game, or you could argue that it is a game, but you know, the psychology is real and it affects the markets in EVE just as much or to an extent as it does in the real world. And you'll find this a lot of the time, that again, especially big items or important items have certain, and again I've covered this in previous videos, but they have certain barriers, and we saw that coming up to here, the 2.8 mark. We've bounced off it, we've come over it slightly and we've dropped back below, it's come back up, it's gone below, and yeah, again, now that we've pushed past it quite considerably, you may see the 2.8 mark becoming a resistance barrier. So once you get through the resistance barriers or the psychological barriers, they often act as supports once you get past them. So now that the price has gone past, you may find that we now drop back down to the 2.8 mark, but again, bounce back off it and go up. And again, as well, it also works the other way around, that if we do down drop back below it, it could act as a resistance barrier to basically prices increasing. So there's a lot goes into it in regards to the psychology of pricing and markets. So with PLEX price increasing, I find this fascinating because again, you know, obviously with the PCU, the player count dropping, prices are going up. Now, obviously with less people online, you'd have kind of either assumed we'd have leveled out, because again, less people online, so there's less people buying PLEX and selling PLEX, and because there's less people online, there's not, yeah, who's now buying it? Why is it going up? You'd have thought it would have leveled off at that, but so there's less people currently playing the game, so there's less people selling it, but there's less people buying it, and yet the price has been steadily rising since the industrial patch. Now, prior to that, back here, you know, there was, obviously with scarcity and the rest of it, you can understand why the prices decreased, because people weren't plexing alts. You know, if you had a raw core alt or a mining fleet or X, Y, and Z, then obviously there was no reason to be plexing these accounts because you couldn't use them or it was harder to use them. So a lot of people stopped plexing these accounts. And, you know, the player count was relatively stable, so you can understand, you know, the same amount of people were still buying PLEX and selling it on the market for real life money. People were buying less of it, so there was more supply, less demand, and again, a little simplified because obviously we've got wars and the rest of it, but to an extent, you know, prices have gone down, but we've had no change in general circumstances of the game, and yet the price is now steadily and has been now increasing for what? For April, May, June, July, nigh on 4 months. Steady increase. So why? Now, again, as I said at the start, I'm not smart enough to work out why the question, because there's so many different factors and I can't even begin to try and fathom, but I do find it a very interesting, intriguing question, and I'd love to know what you guys think. Now, it being a multifaceted item, there are, numerous things that affect the overall price, but, from where I sit, I would have said, well, there's less people in the game, there's less people buying it, less people selling it, should relatively be stable. Now, you could argue, so say, the increase was since the industrial patch, so some people could have, you wouldn't have been selling it to get funds because that would have dropped the price. So why would you be buying it? Maybe because it was just cheap. Maybe people have been buying it because it was cheap, and then it's self-perpetuating as it goes up. For instance, I've just jumped on it. I've bought 11,000, made 1.6 billion ISK so far, and everybody's seeing it increase, so that has the psychological effect of, oh gosh, I don't want to miss out, FOMO. So people are buying, hodling, and the price is going up and up and up as people hoard PLEX, trying to get it for cheap for the future, because again, if it does go back up to its previous prices, then we could see 3.5 million per PLEX. Now, I think at the moment the price for PLEX in account is, let's have a look, 26. I can't even remember what the price was. 268. Yeah, 268 times 500. So currently you can PLEX your account for 1.3 billion ISK. Prior to the increase, you could get it for 2.4. So for 130 million less. And if it goes back up to, we'll say 3.2, we're going to be paying 1.6 billion ISK for an account. And obviously there's less ways, or people say there's less ways of making money or ISK in the game. Now, I don't buy into that. There are still numerous ways of making ISK. Some of them have just been hit on the head somewhat. Again, I feel sorry for the miners, and mining has really taken a hit. And with all the changes to industry, I think they could bring back asteroid belts, or the anomalies with asteroids in more so, because again, the big alliances aren't hoovering it all up making super capitals. You still need quite a lot of minerals as such for super capitals, but nowhere near the sheer amounts that you needed prior. So I don't necessarily see why not bringing some of the, or at least say starting to reverse the changes, because again, a lot of people like to mine. I don't understand it. I don't like mining one bit, but I know a lot of people do, and it does affect a lot of people, and people do it in groups. They have a good old time. It's not my thing, but again, everybody to their own. And I think again, miners could do with a bit of a bone throwing to them to maybe not to the extent that it was with your 20 odd Oracle alts online, but again, for the smaller individual miners, or the people that are doing it on a smaller scale, then again, I think it would be worthwhile. But in regards to PLEX, the reason for it going up is I can't fathom it. Now, there could be something I'm missing fundamentally here to why PLEX price is going up. And as I said, if you know it, then, or if you think you know it, by all means, let me know, because again, I find this a fascinating subject. I watch a lot of real life stock markets as well, and again, trying to work out why things are moving is always fascinating. And again, because this is a game which obviously I'm quite heavily invested in, I find it equally fascinating for different reasons. So a question would be, is now a good time to be buying PLEX? Should I be holding on to it? And I would say yes still. And the reason behind this, as we've just looked at the price difference. Now obviously PLEX prices have gone up by, at the very lowest to the current state, we've got a 400,000 ISK difference between PLEX, which is 200 million ISK, which when you PLEX in an account, let's face it, isn't a huge amount. So even if you buy it now and PLEX Plex price does drop, even if it gets back to its very lowest, you're only, 200 million out times however many, you've bought. But obviously, having the Plex in the bank, and if you do Plex your accounts, means that you can always play the game for, obviously, free, technically. And if it does continue to rise, at the current trend that we're going, so we've gone up 400k in 3.5 months. At this, if we carry on at the same volume or rate, by Christmas we will have broken easily through the 3 million mark, and would be heading towards the 3.2 mark. So again, it's a hard point. I'm really considering buying some more Plex, to be perfectly honest, just so I've got some in the bank. But again, I've got the ISK, so it's not really a big issue for me. But if you're, in the newer phase of getting into Plex in your accounts, then I think buying a couple of hundred just to be on the safe side at the moment. Because if it does keep going up, then obviously you've saved a bit, and if it goes down somewhat, you've not lost a huge amount. Although it may be worth waiting for the next CCP sale to get a bit of a bargain. We've not had one of them for a while, and they usually knock about 10-15% off the market for that moment. So yeah, there's lots of things there to think about, and again, as I said, I ain't smart enough to be able to try and figure the whole thing out and where it's going to stop. But in its current trend, we have very positive up. And again, if you are thinking about buying or waiting, then I think waiting is a bad move, and I would suggest buying at this point. So with that, thank you for listening, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that, then please subscribe. It is very helpful, and I do appreciate it. Trying to obviously grow the channel some more and generate interest. The more people obviously with us, more discussions, and the more fun it is for everybody. Also got Discord channel now. I'll drop the link in the description. I didn't realize that the links do expire after a while, so if you do click it and it does expire, then sorry. I'll try and update it as much as possible. But yeah, we've got some good chats going on, so by all means drop in, say hi, and we'll go from there. And with that, thanks for your time, thanks for listening. Talk to you again soon.